We live in a world that celebrates connection, endless social feeds, shared goals, community values. But what happens when connection becomes a trap? When fitting in replaces being true to yourself? When approval becomes more important than authenticity? This is the hidden cost of self-abandonment, a subtle, creeping force that causes you to trade your truth for comfort, your voice for peace, and your boundaries for belonging. You stop choosing yourself, not because you don't want to, but because somewhere along the way, you were taught that love had conditions, and you've been trying to meet them ever since. In this episode, we're going deep into the psychology of self-abandonment, the unconscious contracts you make in relationships, and how the need to be loved can slowly erode your sense of identity. And most importantly, how to reclaim the parts of yourself you had to hide to survive. Because healing doesn't always look like letting go. Sometimes it looks like remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Self-abandonment often begins in childhood, not as a conscious decision, but as a survival strategy. When you're young and emotionally dependent on your caregivers, you learn quickly what earns you love and what threatens it. If crying made your parent withdraw, you learn to hold it in. If being too loud led to punishment, you learn to be quiet. If anger got you shamed, you learn to smile through it. These are not minor adjustments. These are identity-level compromises, and they become the template for how you relate to others as an adult. You abandon your needs because you learned that expressing them leads to rejection. You silence your voice because conflict feels dangerous. You suppress your truth because authenticity feels unsafe. And over time, that inner child, the one who was just trying to stay safe, becomes the adult who doesn't know who they are without someone else's approval. People-pleasing is one of the clearest signs of self-abandonment. It feels like kindness, but it often comes from fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of confrontation, fear of being seen as too much. You say yes when you mean no. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You shrink to fit someone else's comfort. You give more than you receive, not out of generosity, but because deep down, you believe love has to be earned. But here's the truth. Love that requires self-abandonment isn't love. It's performance. And performing your way into someone's heart may win you temporary approval, but it will cost you long-term peace. You can't build a life you're proud of by betraying yourself in small daily ways. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you send yourself a message. Your needs don't matter. And over time, you start to believe it. When you spend years bending to meet the expectations of others, you don't just lose boundaries, you lose identity. Your sense of self becomes reactive, not rooted. You morph into who people want you to be, forgetting who you truly are. This emotional contortion is subtle. It looks like laughing at jokes you don't find funny, agreeing with opinions that contradict your values, styling your personality like a social chameleon just to avoid conflict or rejection. Eventually, it becomes exhausting. You feel hollow, not because your life is empty, but because yourself has been edited out of it. You've become a mirror, always reflecting what others want to see, never showing what's actually inside. And what's tragic is that many people won't even notice your pain, because from the outside, it looks like you're thriving. You're easygoing, supportive, low maintenance, the strong one, but inside you're fragmented, disconnected, numb. Most self-abandonment stems from unspoken emotional contracts, agreements we subconsciously make in our relationships. You might not say it out loud, but the terms are clear. If I never disagree with you, will you keep loving me? If I make myself small, will you feel safe enough to stay? If I don't ask for anything, will you stop leaving me? These contracts are silent but powerful, and often they go unchallenged for years until your resentment starts to surface. Not because the other person changed, but because the emotional cost finally catches up to you. Resentment is often misread as a flaw, but it's actually a signal. It tells you where you've betrayed yourself, where you've overgiven, overcompromised, overstayed, where you've been saying yes to them but no to yourself. The moment you start listening to that resentment, not to lash out, but to wake up, is the moment you start coming home to yourself. Healing self-abandonment isn't about becoming louder, tougher, or more assertive overnight. It begins with awareness. The gentle, painful realization that you've been absent from your own life. It's catching yourself in the act. The pause before you say yes when you mean no. The tightness in your chest when you suppress your needs. The quiet grief that surfaces when you realize you've been choosing peace over authenticity. Awareness doesn't always bring immediate change, but it's the seed of transformation. Once you start noticing, you can no longer pretend not to know. And from that place, choice is born. You can choose discomfort in the short term, risking disapproval, to build deeper alignment in the long term. You can choose to disappoint others rather than chronically betray yourself. You can choose to show up fully, messily, and truthfully, even if not everyone stays, because the people who love the edited version of you, they were never really loving you. They were loving a performance. And the moment you stop performing, the real relationships, the ones built on truth, begin to emerge. Making space for yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself to do it. It might look like setting a boundary and sticking to it even when it's uncomfortable. It might look like finally voicing your needs even if your voice shakes. It might look like walking away from dynamics that feel safe but slowly kill your spirit. It's learning to trust your emotional instincts again, to realize that discomfort isn't always danger. Sometimes it's just the growing pains of becoming real. You start living from the inside out, not in rebellion, but in reverence for your own truth. And slowly, the gap between who you are and how you live begins to close. That's where peace lives, not in constant approval, not in being easy to love, but in being true to yourself, even when it's hard. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop abandoning yourself, a moment when your inner world becomes safer than any external validation. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop over-explaining your choices just to ease someone else's discomfort. This doesn't make you unkind. It makes you clear, and clarity is a gift, not just to you, but to everyone around you. You begin to understand that people who respect your truth will remain, and those who don't were never truly with you to begin with. You no longer fear their exit. You see it as alignment, as release, as return. Healing self-abandonment isn't a one-time revelation. It's a daily practice of returning to your body, to your values, to your voice. And each time you return, the distance gets shorter, the reunion gets gentler, the shame softens. And the self you once abandoned becomes the home you never thought you could live in. You realize you are not too much. You never were. You were just in the wrong rooms, speaking a language your soul had long outgrown. When you finally stop abandoning yourself, the world doesn't suddenly become easier, but you become more whole. You stop filtering your feelings for palatability. You stop minimizing your dreams to fit someone else's comfort. You stop confusing emotional safety with being agreeable. Instead, you walk with your contradictions. You hold both your sensitivity and your strength. You become a paradox, and you stop trying to explain yourself. The real you may lose people, but the ones who stay or who arrive will be meeting you for the first time, not the version you curated for survival, but the version born in truth. And that truth? It's magnetic, it's powerful. It's enough because you are no longer shrinking yourself to be loved. You're expanding into the love that includes all of you. Not perfect, not polished, but present. And in a world obsessed with image, your authenticity is a quiet form of rebellion, a soft revolution against self-abandonment. You've come home. See you in the next video.